What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live, Prepper School, and I have no idea what volume it is
It'd be
because
53.
53.
53.
We have taken a break from Prepper School just to kind of get some things lined up. We're not sure exactly. This is just a special edition. It's just a live stream. So I'm not really sure that what our next steps are, but I've really felt like this was an important one to bring up. And we've got Robbie Wheaton with us from Wheaton Arms. Also has the Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel. Check it out. There's a link down below in the description. Robbie's been a gunsmith for over 20 years, competitive shooter, just crazy guy all the way around, and a big asset for us. We really appreciate Robbie being here. And again, his link down below for his YouTube channel. It's pretty awesome. Sarah Mack's going to be taking some questions. And in just a little bit, we'll take a break. And we do appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. And you get $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch. Sootch, S-O-O-T-C-H. I use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great resource.
Yes, it is. Not a better place to go for surplus goods.
No, yeah.
Great place to go for surplus goods.
And we really do appreciate those guys. Also, Exotac, they give a 20% off using Sootch 20 with a link down below in the description. And they're the best fire starters out on the market. So we really appreciate them for helping us out. Now, this is something that's huge. It's big, it's massive, and we're not financial guys. We're not, a financial advisor. So we're not trying to tell you. We are going to talk about some of the crypto, not really crypto. In fact, we're going to talk about digital currency, and we're going to talk about some of the dangers. And really, guys, it's pretty invasive to our freedoms, and it's just really a scary thing. And so, and then we're going to give you some ideas about helping to protect you. We can't tell you all the things to protect you because honestly, if it comes, it's pretty encompassing. So, but there are some things that we're gonna talk about and give you guys some ideas and some things that you really need to think about. And so, first off, I mean, we've lived under the Federal Reserve, the central bank. I mean, there's already a central banking system that's out there, and we've been dealing with that. But now we have not digital currency, but we have electronic banking. Because a lot of people are like, well, what's the difference? I pull out my credit card, I use it, they can track it. I mean, we live in a surveillance kind of scenario, honestly.
We do. Not just with our banking, but the digital devices that we all carry around in our pockets every day. They're listening devices, and they can be used for good, or it can be used for nefarious purposes. There's a lot of companies that use it for marketing purposes, to be able to market specific goods to you based off of keywords and things that your phone picks up on that you say, and not just your phone, but anything that you have that's wired to the internet now. Your televisions, your smart TVs, and stuff like that, all can be used to pick up your conversations and track things and be able to submit ads to you that are directly in line with things that you're talking about and interested in.
Well, and surveillance cameras and facial recognition. I mean, there's a bazillion things. They can follow you on your computer. They can track all that stuff. We all kind of know that. I mean, that's kind of common. It's good in some ways. A lot of criminals, have been thwarted from getting away with crimes. We've seen that with, and some of the technologies. And a lot of it can be used for good, but a lot of it can be used, it's according to who's at the helm. And, unfortunately, we live in a world of bureaucrats, in a sense. It's not necessarily our elected officials.
Right.
It's other people that are controlling this. And one of the things that Rothschild said many years ago is, give me control over a country's money, and I don't care what laws they come out with. Money is the control. That controls everything. It will shut you down. We've seen with the up in Canada, and they've really done some things, especially with the Freedom Trucker movement, where they went in and seized bank accounts. They closed down businesses. They stopped credit. I mean, they really came in hard on those guys. And Justin Trudeau, in fact, I saw this where Tulsi Gabbard was talking about it. And she showed a small clip of Trudeau saying, "Oh, I'm all about protest. I think it's very important to have protest." He goes, "Until you start protesting government policies." He goes, "That's just wrong." Well, that is wrong. That is big time. I mean, what else are you going to protest? I mean, what are you going to protest? They're going to protest this. So, it's government policies and things that's one of the biggest reasons why we have protests, and because of some of the changes that we want to see made. Well, when we lose our financial power altogether, it really starts to get scary. Now, and guys, already, again, the Fed's already in place. The central bank's been doing this for years. But, we have banking. We have our local banks. We have electronic banking through our local banks and through other means. And then we have like a Venmo and PayPal and different apps to be able to, access our funds. The one thing about those is they're partitioned. They are separate. I'm gonna give you an example. Saturday, went to the gun show. On the way, I had cash because I was looking for a couple of things. And so I stopped by the ATM. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get a little bit extra just in case. And so I go and I get $400 out, And so I get to the gun show. I find something that, I'm like, oh man, this is a great deal, which was surprising enough. And but I had my eye on something else. And so I went ahead and I made a purchase. Well, I needed just a little bit more to make a purchase on this other item. And so they had an ATM machine there. So I went, put my card in, it was declined. Now I had plenty of money in the bank and I knew it, but I was like, what? And I looked at the receipt and it said, you've extracted or you've withdrawn your maximum for
your
the day.
limit for the day.
Now I had another card and it wasn't a big deal. And I kind of went, okay, whatever. I'm just not going to do it. But here's the thing, guys. They are even on this smaller level, they're controlling the amount of money that I could access with that card. Now, because of the partition, I could take a different card and I can go and I can use it and I can withdraw funds. Or I can go to another card, or, especially with PayPal, you can't even buy gun parts and guns and things like that. And so they're already limiting your availability toward those products. But I can go to my other card, or and I can get around it, or I can take cash. And this is probably the biggest danger. So we have this system to where everything is partitioned. We have some safeguards because we're not stuck under one system. Andrew Tate, whether you like him or love him, a very controversial figure in the world. A lot of things have been leveled against him. And so this is one of the things. I just saw this interview on Patrick Bet-David on Valuetainment, and he had gotten a strike on his YouTube channel. Well, they had this documentary they were getting ready to publish. So they were waiting for the strike because it limits you for like 10 days. You can't upload anything. Right before the 10-day window was closed and he could go ahead and upload his video, YouTube came in and shut his channel down. And then they shut down every different app, every social media platform he had. They shut them all down all at the same time. They started shutting him down to where he had no voice.
Wow.
No voice. Even Uber shut his account down.
Wow.
It was like all these, even outside of just financial or social media, or they just across the board started shutting him down. Listen, guys, if you're watching this channel, you're not necessarily in the mainstream. One of the things that most people do is, they just live life. They go work their job. They're not thinking about prepping. They're not thinking about putting things back. They're a little bit outside the norm. They contend. Like for me, I am a supporter of government. I think we need government. We need that governance, and it should protect our rights and it should protect our laws. And when they don't, then I feel like we need to call them out and we need to keep them in line. We need to stay active. But I might be considered kind of a rebel. You and your business.
Yep.
What all the restrictions that you deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah. Even like with this past week with the new arm brace ban, changing the definition of what a rifle is and what a pistol is. And, now they've made felons out of, potentially up to 40 million people in the United States by a ruling change. And, they give those people like 90 days to be able to register those firearms as a short-barreled rifle, which is really just a backdoor gun registration method that they're using. But you can either register your firearm or take the brace off or destroy it, or surrender it to the ATF. And it's just a backdoor gun control is all that it is. Yep.
It's tyranny.
But until it's overturned in the courts, you either abide by the law or you're a felon,
or you face the consequences.
Right.
We did a video on Sootch channel about this, and we just kind of laid it out. If this is what the ATF is saying, these are your options. We got hammered because people were thinking that we were going along with it.
Yeah.
Listen, we are not going along with it. We're going to fight it. But there are parameters that we have to do, especially being on social media.
That's right.
I mean, we've got a voice here. And for me to go, do not comply, I have my own feelings about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be vocal.
That's right.
At certain points. Because if anybody, I've got more to lose than, there's very few people that have more to lose than what I do with this whole ruling. So it's a real big mess. But aside the point, you're right.
Yep. Well, and I even live streamed the ATF webinar last week on my YouTube channel for people to be able to watch what the ATF was saying that they wanted with this new ruling. So because there was so much misinformation about it, and I really wanted people to understand what the ATF was asking for. So I live streamed the entire stream from the ATF and put that on my YouTube channel for people to watch and have a reference where they could go back to and be able to reference this.
Well, and you should check that out. It's on Robbie's channel. But we were talking about, incremental freedoms that we have that we enjoy.
Yep.
So now, what does this mean? Now, obviously, we haven't gone to that yet. We're heading to it. And I think Biden's actually put an executive order out saying that he wants us to go to a digital currency by 2024. I think it is. I think it's a 2-year window. But it has to have approval by Congress. So this is not something that's happening tomorrow. It's coming. Now, listen, it makes to most people, it's like, so what?
Yeah.
I mean,
I use my debit card for most everything anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care. And I'm going to go out here and I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. The problem is if you're on that side like we are, to where we go buy ammunition, gun parts, I stock up food, you stock up food, or you should. I'm buying supplies for water, I'm buying propane, maybe I'm stocking up some things because I see some dangers happening.
Right.
What happens when you get your card is like, you're limited. You put it in, it's like, you can only buy 4 of those. Let's say that there are the economy has a downturn. And one of the things that's kind of funny, and this is what the government does a lot of times, they'll dump cash, like reimbursements or just money, into the system, and people can go spend it, and it brings the economy back up.
Props up the economy, artificially props up the economy.
And so, in fact, I think it was in England, they did a thing where they said, hey, we're going to give you this money. You've got so much time to spend it. And so people ran out. They had like $1,000, so they could run out. They could just spend it, and buy these things. And they did it just to kind of boost the economy. And it's one thing that we've seen, just like with when COVID relief and all that stuff. It was to keep the economy popping, and it wasn't really producing anything, but it was spending. Now, let's say that we have a gas shortage. Like we did. Let's say we have a cyber attack and you go to the gas station, you put your card in, and you can only get $10 worth of gas. Well, they're like, you don't need to hoard that. Let's say that food production is having some issues. I go and put my card in. I can only have so much I can spend. It can limit every part of your life.
That's right.
Now, let's say we go buy some ammunition. I was on Patreon Live last night. We were talking a little bit about this, and I said, in the news, if you look at headlines, somebody that has 1,000 rounds of ammunition and 5 guns has an arsenal. And I said, I probably got that in the back of my car right now.
That's rolling around in the floorboard of the car.
People, the thing is that, and this is the one problem, is who is in control? Are they going, well, why do you need that? What are you doing with that? What do you, it's loss of privacy.
Yep.
Typically, I like to use cash. Now, here's the big thing. With digital currency, there will not be cash. You will lose cash. Every transaction will have to be done. Let's say Robbie has a gun and I want to buy it. Well, here in South Carolina, it's perfectly legal for us to do a private transaction with nothing, as long as we know that each other are not felons.
Yep.
I go and I say, hey man, I'll give you $400 for that HK MP5.
That's a bargain.
And let's say I give him the cash, I take it, I'm great. What about under a digital currency?
Right.
It'll have to be tracked. I can't transfer that money to him unless it's under a digital file of some sort. Now, yeah, I can say, oh, it was for, whatever, for a go-kart or something. I could do that.
Toothbrushes and toothpaste.
Man, we really need a lot of dental toothbrush. But, the thing is it is going to invade every part of your privacy.
That's right. That's right. And, to me, that's the scariest part about the entire thing is with any type of digital currency is that you give up all of your privacy whatsoever. Anything that you buy, anything that you sell, anything that you purchase is being tracked and it's being monitored. Now, can that be used for good? Sure. It could absolutely be used for good. It can be used to serve up ads for you, like we were talking about earlier, to be able to show you things that you may be interested in. But it can also be used in a very nefarious way by controlling you, controlling your family, and controlling what you can and can't spend your money on.
Well, like money laundering.
Right.
I mean, that's something, that has been abused to people that are private citizens, that they want to know how much you're spending, why are you spending that money, what are you doing? It was made to stop criminal activity.
Right.
And that is an upside to it, is
Sure.
that it can limit, drug deal transactions, things like that. But it can also tax you on everything you do.
Well, it's not just the tax that you're paying on everything that you do. One of the big things for me, one of the big concerns for me is your money's not going to be worth what it was worth before, because you're going to be charged a transaction percentage on every transaction that you do, just like with credit cards. You buy something on your debit card, the bank or whoever is processing it, they're charging a percentage to process that. It can be anywhere from 1/10 of a penny to a penny or 2 pennies or even 3 pennies. It just kind of depends on the transaction and how it's ran through their system, whether it's a credit card or a debit card. But you're paying a transaction fee for every purchase that you make. If we switch over to an entirely digital currency, every penny that you spend is going to have a transaction fee attached to it. So somebody's going to be getting extremely rich off of you, where you're actually losing money and your dollar is being devalued, or your digital currency at that point is being devalued.
Well, one thing we've seen lately, and we're going to go to some questions. If you have some questions, go ahead and put them down. We're going to take a break here in just a second. But then I forgot what I was talking about. That figures. It used to be an old man. But okay, let's switch gears for a second. Well, before we go to social, I want to talk about the social credit score in China. That's definitely something that is big. But one of the big things right now is if you want to have a side gig, if you want to do something, and that's where a lot of businesses start out. Sure. I mean, that was for me for YouTube. Yep. Honestly, I was doing it just for fun. I was just like, hey, they shoot guns. I'm going to shoot some guns on video, and just started shooting it. I didn't even realize it, but I've always had these side gigs on the side. One of the things they've done now is they're monitoring any kind of income that you're coming up with. If you're being paid on Venmo or PayPal or whatever, if you get paid over $600, let's say you have an Etsy account and you're hand carving some cool wood or whatever, and you're selling them on Etsy. If you've made over $600, the FB, man, if I get my
acronym correct,
the IRS is getting notified, and now you're liable for that tax money.
That's right.
And so it's getting more and more intrusive into your life. I mean, what is $600? And the thing is, it's getting more facial recognition, voice recognition, the way you walk.
Right.
I mean, they are tracking everything, and with that, if they're tracking your money, let's say that politically you're opposed to what's going on. man, you have a big stamp on your head. Now, let me say this, and we're going to go to questions. For a long time, back in biblical days, around the beginning of the millennia, so when Christ was on the earth, he talked about how you will not be able to buy, sell, and trade without a mark. Now, I'm not saying that this is the mark of the beast, but I am saying that it's been prophesied for generations, for thousands of years, that this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that we definitely need to notice and go, you know what? Yeah, there's some good things, but the dangers far outweigh the good.
That's right.
One of the things that America has always been about is just the risk and about taking chances and doing things. And it creates innovation, and it inspires people to do great things. And this just brings it down and limits us. So, we've got some questions for us, Sarah Mac.
Ernie Andrews asks or says, happy to see you. Nice background. What can we learn from Turkey?
Well, beside the big earthquake that's happened in Turkey, I know that a lot of people, in Greece was another one where the banks they went to the ATM and they had, limited funds to pull out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things especially with Turkey being part of the EU, and that's another thing. The EU is another example of control of economies. But as far as specifically a question that you're asking about Turkey, I'm not sure. I know they've had a lot of economic downturns. So has Greece over the past few years, and a number of countries. And these things lead people to accept things that they really shouldn't.
One of the biggest takeaways that I've seen from Turkey recently is don't live in a high rise.
Yeah, don't live in a high rise. But I'm not really up on all the like I say, the financial stuff that's going on in Turkey. But I know that there are a lot of issues.
Lindsay Dills says, question, any ideas on how to protect cars and devices from an EMP?
Whew. Well, there are a lot of things out there. The one thing about an EMP is that it's never actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
They've done some testing with them, and they've had solar flares that have burned up telegraph lines, and they know there's some potential solar flares, but they've really never tested it. So to know exactly what is vulnerable.
Yep. As far as vehicles go, your newer vehicles, if an EMP happened today and it works as advertised, your vehicle is going to be dead, and there's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do about it unless you've got a bunker that you can bury your car in. One thing that you can do as far as a vehicle is purchase an older vehicle that is mechanical, whether it's a mechanical diesel or mechanical runs on gas and has points and a carburetor. Then you've got no digital or electronics inside the vehicle that could be short-circuited by an EMP. Your older vehicles will still be able to run, they'll still be able to work. Your diesels that don't require any type of electronics to work, those will still be able to function and everything like they're supposed to. And then as far as like your digital devices and things like that, it's always good to have a Faraday bag that you keep some stuff like that in, or keep one around that you can drop your stuff in case something like that does happen. You will have some forewarning, I believe, in most cases, that there was going to be some sort of an attack, unless it's like a balloon that floats all the way across our country for a week and, is allowed to do whatever. Just saying.
Well, that was one thing that really came up is with the balloon, is with the payload that they were carrying, 2.5 tons.
Mm-hmm.
They could easily have had a nuclear device on there that detonated. Yep. That would have caused an EMP.
At 60,000 feet, it would have been devastating.
And not only China, which China has more to lose, honestly, but you take North Korea or Iran or some other rogue country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is that is not a very expensive way to deliver.
That's right.
A nuclear device and detonated nuclear device.
Especially when you sit there for a week and look at it and just go, oh, look at the pretty balloon. I mean, but on the flip side of that, I could definitely see some hesitation toward wanting to pop the balloon because you don't know what it's filled with. Could that balloon been filled with any type of radiation? Could that balloon be filled with NBC, nuclear material, biological material, chemical materials? sarin gas. I mean, there's a lot of different things that balloon could have been filled with that would make you want to hesitate to pop that balloon, just because you don't know what the ramifications of bursting it were going to be, which I think is one of the big reasons why they waited until it moved off the coast of South Carolina before they popped it.
I just think it's just an embarrassment. That's to me, the whole thing is. All right, next question.
Fed Up American says, why does the ATF get to make laws? I thought that was Congress's job.
Well, they can't. And I think we're going to see, we've already got a number of lawsuits on the brace ban.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to, negate. I really feel that with administrative as much as anything, but with the brewing case, it gives us a lot more Second Amendment leeway to be able to attack it. Let me just say this, though, and then I'll let you go. One of the things about the brace rule is there are people that don't watch YouTube. There are guys that went out and bought an AR-15 pistol because their buddy had one, and they're like, oh, this is cool, and they go out and shoot it on the weekends. What's, to me, the scariest thing are those guys who have no clue, go to the range, and law enforcement picks them up and charges them. That bothers me as much as anything. But I will say this, just this tip. And two, the ATF's not going to come knocking on your door and look for something. It usually has to be attached to something else. But if you really want to just kind of go, you know what, I'm going to let this pass because sometimes it takes time, is just to remove the brace and put it over in another section. And that's all you have to do to abide by this ruling. That's it. So if you feel that way, if you don't give a crap, then don't. I mean, hey, I understand, believe me. But if you do, that's the easiest, most simple way.
That's right. And, it's one of those things that it is going to have to run its course through our court system, which, like we saw with the slide fire stocks, the bump fire stocks, it takes time for that to run through our court system. It takes time for it to get to your appeals courts. It takes time to get to the Supreme Court, and then they have to hear the case, and then they have to decide whether they're going to rule on it or not. But yes, I do agree with you. That is one of my biggest fears, because there's been no mass media publication whatsoever. You haven't seen anything about the braces on your mainstream media about those things being illegal now. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's absolutely my biggest fear. All of these people that have bought them, that a lot of guys buy guns. I had a friend of mine buy this morning. We were talking, and he loves firearms, is a collector, but he's not a shooter. He does not shoot very often. He's bought a bunch of guns in the last few years, and they just go in his safe, and he likes to collect them. He had no idea about the arm brace thing until I told him this morning. Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, it's scary. Okay.
Ralph Stone asked, tell me how we will use silver and gold after collapse and how the government will try to stop the use.
Oh, they'll try to stop it for sure. One of the things to me is that gold, silver have been means of exchange since they were found, since they were discovered. Gold into the earliest documents that you can find, definitely the biblical narrative. I mean, it is gold, silver has been used. It has intrinsic value. To say that there's not ways that they can kind of make that harder for you to deal with, yes, but it's also recognizable. It's recognized. So if someone comes to me, and let's just take this as an example, I don't like digital currency. I don't want to mess with that. I mean, I have to function, to have electricity and those things. But for the things that I want to deal with, that I just don't want everybody and their brother to know, I don't even want my neighbor to know, that I'm buying food. Then, I'll tell you, during 2008, when we had our economic downturn, there were stores that actually opened up that accepted silver for purchases. And so to me, having that, it's been, again, a traditional means of wealth, and what I've heard it called God's currency. And it's something that you can, people see they see the value to it.
Yep.
And so, if I take a $50 or Liberty Walker and I walk in somewhere or have with some guy or whatever, and I've actually bought guns that way, where I've taken silver and traded it for something.
Yep.
So, it's just a means. Now, because we don't know, we can't forecast to predict what can actually happen. To me, it just helps protect the value of what I have. And if the dollar goes down to nothing, the price of silver and gold is going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to have some means of value to it. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Harbor Prepper mentions my leftist cousin and brother were singing praises of the CBDC since it could restrict gun sales until I told them that it could also restrict alcohol sales. That got their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not just it can restrict. I mean, if you've gone to the liquor store a few times,
Yep.
that can come up. And the thing is, it's not going to have some person sitting there going, "What are they doing? What are they buying?" I mean, this is electronic. This is computerized.
It'll be AI tracked.
Right.
Absolutely.
They'll know everything. And so what'll happen is if you make certain purchases, it'll pop up on this screen and automatically limit you on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that I've gone out and I bought, a bunch of cans of propane because I'm stocking up on it. And it's like, oh, that's more than your allotment. I mean, but yeah, freedom, ammunition, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're already having trouble with certain entities. And you talk about gun control. If they ever do pass something, they can just go, "Kunk, nope, you can't buy anything now."
Yep. That's right.
So that's
then it would be 100%, back to bartering for things where you're trading either gold or silver or other goods or services to be able to purchase things that you need.
Right. So that's so let's go to some of the solutions. And again, guys, listen, some of us have money in the bank, we have investments, we have pensions, you have all this stuff, and your money's locked in. I mean, the thing is if they start this with the central bank digital currency, to function, you're going to have to go through it. But let's talk about the Chinese credit system, credit score. This is something China is really on track to do this faster than anybody else, and for good reason. And we know that the traditional problems with China and communism and just the amount of people there. But they are really, they're pushing to get this done because it gives them total control, which obviously gives whoever does this total control over us. One of the things that happens is if you're on social media and you're saying something, you're criticizing, it doesn't even have to be it could be just you're criticizing something that's going on. Then it clicks on your credit score, so it lowers it. And let's say you do something, you're maybe buying something, or you're just doing whatever, or maybe you and your spouse have had a problem and the law enforcement's come. It just continues to click, and it lowers your score. Now, let's say I go out and I volunteer at my local homeless shelter, or I'm doing this, then it clicks up and it gives me more credit. But the problem is a lot of these people now are restricted from international travel. They can't go to certain restaurants. They can't do certain things, and it limits them. China is really more of an extreme example, but it's where we're headed if we allow this to happen.
Well, the reality is it really an extreme example, or is it just foreshadowing for what we could see in our own country?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the concern.
They've already got all the surveillance cameras up. They're doing all the facial recognition. The one thing is, in fact, I saw this the other day. They were doing something where a guy was walking down the street with his girlfriend, and facial recognition picked him up, and he was wanted for some petty crime, and they knew exactly where he was the whole time, and they came and picked him up. Have you not paid your county taxes? Have you missed a parking ticket? Have you done something inadvertently? You just forgot. Yeah. I know a while back, my son was driving around in his car and he got a notice and he said, "Oh, my tag's been out for like a couple of months." And he was like, "Oh, shoot." With this kind of technology, they're tracking. And here's the thing, they will track it even closer. Like Robbie said at the beginning, we have our phones, we have our computers, we have all this stuff that they're tracking already. What about GPS? And you've got all that stuff. They can monitor you, they can watch you. But what happens when they integrate that with our financial system? Guys, freedom is gone. Privacy is gone. And, if you want to live in a vanilla world and you go to work and you do your little thing and you come home and you go to the ball game and everything's peachy keen, then great. But if you're kind of like us and we're a little bit on the edge about stuff and, we're concerned about things and we're wanting to make purchases.
Well, the big thing is we just want to make sure that our family's protected, that we can provide for our family, that our family's protected, that we're going to have food, we're going to have the things that we need to live a happy, sustainable life. And, that's why a lot of us prep. That's why a lot of us put our food back. We put water back to make sure that if there are hard times, that we still have the things that we need to survive comfortably. And, with this digital currency, that's something that we could easily see go away very quickly, is the ability to be able to have a self-sustaining lifestyle.
Well, let's say there's a drought in the area and food production is hard to get, and they start to limit the amount of food that you're able to do. They did that during World War II, where they rationed a lot of things. They ration your, what you're doing. They ration your tires. If you're not driving an electric car, you're not allowed to get parts to fix the car that you have already, this gas powered or diesel. Let's say with gas stoves, which I heard that Congress has come in and kind of stopped that. But let's say you have a gas stove and you can't get gas for it. Let's say that your water, they just decided to shut your water off, which they did that in China when they had COVID restrictions. They shut off, in companies that were still working, they shut their power off, they shut their water off, and they couldn't do. So it's just a control thing. Now, but let's talk a little bit about some solutions. One thing is, and I'll just be quite frank with you guys, is ammunition will be very monitored. You go to buy ammunition. Honestly, right now, to me, I would recommend, especially the closer that this comes into being, is to purchase your ammunition ahead of time. Make a focus on that. Things that the government's going to really would be deeming as a little bit on the fringe. I think those kind of things. The other thing is, though, is if we're purchasing a lot of food stuff on our electronic banking,
right,
they know what you have. And let's say they come to you and you've done all these preparations, you've invested your time and your money, while your neighbor has been going to Disney World every year and taking trips all over the place and buying a new car, and you've restricted yourself so you can provide for your family. And the government comes in and says, hey, you got all this food, you need to distribute this out. You're hoarding that. So here's the thing, things that are essential to survival.
Well, and one of the big things is, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this and they're saying to themselves, well, that won't ever happen. The government's never going to do that. Think about what they did with the rubber gloves with these companies that had bought cases and cases and cases and pallets of rubber gloves and masks to sell during COVID. And the government came in and took them from them. All right. Under the guise of they were hoarding, and it was hurting the economy because they were overcharging or price gouging for these items. Maybe they were price gouging, maybe they weren't. Hand sanitizer, maybe they were price gouging for it, maybe they weren't. At the end of the day, it's supply and demand, and it's capitalism. All right. If you want a product that somebody has and you're willing to pay for it, then you'll buy it. If you don't, you won't. But I think it was totally wrong for our government to come in and take these products from these companies that had purchased them legally and seize those products and distribute those products out without compensating these people for their products that they had purchased. And so if you don't think that it won't happen or can't happen or doesn't happen, it's already happening in our country.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, it's just like PayPal. If you want to do something, I mean, when we used to sell magazines, we sold AR magazines and we had engraving on them. And we had to list it a funky way so PayPal wouldn't shut it down, because that's the best way to be able to process those payments. Okay, so, but here's the thing, guys. Number one is you want to make sure that you're able to purchase what your survival needs are. So making sure that you have water, making sure you have a source for water. Whether it's a rain catchment system, whether it's a pool, whether it's the local lake down, and you want to have a way to filter it. So you want to make sure that, you have those water, food, your heat source, those kind of things laid out, because that is your basic survival. Listen, you lose your wealth, you lose your wealth. But if you lose your life, it's done, especially when you have family members. Bartering can be probably more acceptable in a situation like that.
It would become mainstream again.
Yeah, people are going to barter, they're going to trade, so having items that people, or go through your stuff and look and see what you have. Early on, cash will be good, but then after a while, if they really transition to this, it's a fiat currency. It's not worth anything anyway. Right. It's just on the back of the word of the federal government to be legal tender. But honestly, as far as value, intrinsic value, it has none. And so tomorrow it can be shut off. So let's go to few more questions and see what we got, and then if not, we'll. But the big thing is, guys, is just start thinking about it. Put it in your mind. And again, we're not there yet, but we're heading there quickly.
Holy Cow asks, was the balloon Chinese or NSA, like the Pentagon was talking about in 2019, used for surveillance over the Midwest?
We really don't know. They haven't recovered any of it yet.
I think they have.
Have they? Okay. And because it only fell in like, what, 40 or 50 feet of water. It wasn't super deep. So it should have been pretty easy to recover.
They did.
Okay.
I saw some pictures actually where they pulled them up, and it was shot right off the coast. It wasn't too far out.
Yep.
Lindsay Dill says, question, will either of you specifically use the central bank digital currency? Barter sounds great until Walmart demands it from now on.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. How am I going to pay my power bill?
Right. There's certain things that you have no choice but to use. If they implement this, there's certain things you have no choice but to pay with a central currency. And that would be your car payment, your power bill, your phone bill, your house payment, things like that. But for me, anything outside of what I have to pay with it, I would find other meaningful ways to be able to get things that I needed.
Well, especially things that, that people are looking at you kind of sideways. And I think, I mean, people that I'm associate with, or we're all like-minded. I mean, we think about the future. We think about the things that we need. But if I went to the middle of New York City and told people what I was doing, they'd think I was absolutely nuts. And they would look at me and go, why do you need that? Why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? And those are the kind of people that are going to be judging your character and your decisions. One thing about, let's say, power. Well, then get, solar panels. There are things that you can do. Here's the thing, the bottom line, and really what the Sensible Prepper channel is all about is you should be working toward being more self-reliant, more self-sufficient. You can't totally, we need each other, but that is the answer, really, as far as doing that, is to be more and more self-reliant, being able to grow our own food. I mean, if according to the Bible, it says that a loaf of bread will be worth a bag of gold at one point. If I'm growing my own food, then, I'm going to be able to last longer and to live longer and to provide for my family.
Prepare to Survive says the Missouri bill SB 100 encourages the use of gold and silver as money, including making it legal tender, eliminating the capital gains tax on gold and silver, and establishing a state bullion depository.
I love that.
Interesting.
I love that. There are some, and here's the thing, guys, if we're not careful, I thought about this the other day. If we're not careful, we look at all the negatives. There are a lot of positive things that are going on. And the Supreme Court really has been a very positive influence. We do have the House now that's under Republican control. We'll wait and see how that really translates, because you know how that goes. But they are making a lot of headway so far. So you got to keep that finger on the pulse, and you got to give those guys a lot of a push. But it's according to where you live too. I think, like in Missouri. I mean, here in South Carolina, we're pretty freedom-minded. A lot of other areas.
Black Bart mentions, oh my goodness, do y'all know about the goldbacks? 4 states are already minting their own currency.
See, that kind of stuff is a hedge against what we're talking about. And I love that. I love it.
Peaceful, Calm, and Clear says, is there a website you recommend for gold and silver?
Yes. In fact, I've known these guys for many years, but it's Scottsdale Mint. They mint coins for over 20 countries. And I've known Josh for over 10 years. Super great, good Christian guy, if that matters to you. But they are really top notch, and there's a lot of demand for it. But Scottsdale Mint is the place that especially when bullion, different things like that. Now, I'll just tell you, if I'm going to buy junk silver, which I do as well, I go to pawn shop, gun shows. Gun shows are great for that. Different places. And
tell you one of my little secret spots that I go for gold and silver is flea markets.
Oh yeah,
flea markets. I bought several bags of silver. Let's just say under face value at a flea market a few months ago.
Wow, that's a deal.
Yeah, and it was crazy. This woman, she pulls up and she's driving, like a Lexus, very nice car, and she's dressed. She's dressed very nicely. And she gets out and she's walking around, and I'm standing over talking to these guys about some coins and stuff that they had. And she walked up and she said, would any of y'all be interested in buying some silver? And she said, I've got a bunch of old silver coins and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'd be interested in them. And she was like, well, let me show you what I got. She pulls out 2-gallon Ziploc bags that are slammed full of silver, silver coins. And she was like, you know, I'll take this for it. And I almost broke both of my arms trying to get my wallet out, you know. And
if you hadn't had cash, you'd have been in trouble.
If I wouldn't have had cash, I would have been in trouble. And but she said she had some more at home. So, and I got her number and everything. She got mine. She's supposed to get in touch with me next time she's back up here so I can get some more from her.
Well, you know, there are deals like that. There's a place that I go to, and it's a local coin shop, and they have a ton of junk silver. And so what I do is I go and I'll just take, if I have a little extra money, and I'll go up there and I'll purchase a couple of bags and then, you know, it protects my wealth.
It does.
It's not an investment necessarily. It is an investment in your future in the long term, because it's something that you have. And it hedges against problems more than anything. And honestly, right now, silver and gold are at a low.
Yep.
So this is a great time to purchase.
Well, and, you know, I like old coins anyway.
Right.
So anytime I can pick up old coins and get to research them and, you know, find out more information about the coins, I enjoy that as well.
Chris Matthews asked, hey, Mr. Don, Robbie, and Sarah Mack, would you suggest a 3X or 1 to 6X ACCS 7.62 by 3.9 for hunting deer?
I like the 1x6. It gives you the ability to dial it down to 1X and shoot it like a red dot. Or if you need more magnification, you've got the extra magnification to be able to wind it up to make a longer shot.
Yeah, if it's for hunting applications especially. Now for a self-defense situation, I kind of like the red dot. You can get hits out to 300 yards on a man-sized target really fast.
Yep.
But the 1 to 6, those, listen, primary arms, ACSS reticle is the bomb.
Hard to beat.
It's the bomb. They are some of the best reticles out there for the money, and the scope's lifetime guarantee. So I definitely, I would go with the 1 to 6.
AC Grant asked, in case of an EMP attack, will our O-lights be fried?
Probably. But, again, we don't know. It's according to the location.
Mm-hmm.
It's according to how, as far as how close it is to you. It's according to the, there's a lot of factors.
There's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah. So, our phones, one of the problems is the phone may not be affected, but the tower may be ripped out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or not ripped out, but it may be completely, out of service. So, that's one thing. You may say, oh, I'm gonna hold on to my phone, but if you don't have towers, it's pretty much useless. But it just makes a good computer if you have some things to do. But
that's right.
There's Faraday bags are great. The only problem is what have you got in your Faraday bag? I mean, and I'll tell you, I like to put battery chargers in there. I like to put two-way radios, things like that. Maybe an iPad, because even though an iPad may not be something you can't get online, but you can still function. You can use it for things. And so those are the kind of things that I'm not using all the time, because my luck would be I pull out whatever I'm using and then there's an EMP.
Well, it's funny that you talk about that, about not being able to access the internet and access certain things like that. One thing that we've really been looking into lately has been Starlink. Just because it does give you the ability to be able to access satellite internet from anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, as long as, because I know I was looking into that too. The big problem is, or really a problem could be that the satellite would be affected as well.
It could be, depending on the altitude that the EMP was detonated at.
But satellites do this.
Right.
And so it may not be in that vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
Coney Billings asked, what do you consider junk silver, like teapots and silverware?
No, that has value. But that goes more toward where people want maybe a lot used to do that. We were in the jewelry business. My family was for years, and we would take in silver and stuff, and we would send it to a refiner. You're really more toward not a numismatic value, but more of a value of the item. Let's say you have a really nice silver teapot. You can probably sell it for more than you could
if you melted it down.
Yeah, if you melted it down. But when I talk about junk silver, I'm talking about U.S. minted coins that are pre-64 or 64 and below. In 65, the ratios changed, and so it's still partially silver. I think it's 40-60, but it's 90% silver with your silver coins from 1964 and below. And so a lot of times at pawn shops they'll sell that, and there's a value to them, and so that's where I like to get those kind of coins, because here's the thing. And especially, I don't want necessarily a big bullion necessarily, because if I need to do some bartering, I can take a quarter and use it instead of using a big bar, and what he has may not be anywhere near the same value. And so I like to have those coins as well that are in lower denominations, even dimes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because silver right now I think is at $22 an ounce. And so and you can look at the different figures of what coins are worth. And there's a lot of information out there about it. But I just think it's just a smart move to protect your wealth. It gives you a plan B if you need one. And guys, in fact, I have a friend of mine who was down in Costa Rica when they had Costa Rica, but it was one of the Central American countries, and they had a socialist kind of revolution. And he and his family had wealth, they had lands. And one night, in the middle of the night, they had a big group come to their house, and they had a wall. They had walls around their house, and they stormed their house. And the only way they got out was they had a tunnel to escape. And they used money. They used current or silver and gold to get out of the country. They did that in Vietnam, right after the Vietnam War. A lot of Vietnamese used their jewelry and different things to get them out of that situation. So
the Germans did during World War II.
I mean, it's been done over and over and over. Listen, when people go, oh, you can't eat silver. Well, you can't eat brass and lead either. And the thing is, just like we saw with COVID, we had an SHTF kind of situation. It was light, but it was there. And there were very few people that were running out with guns in the middle of COVID because of whatever reason, except Antifa. But, the thing is silver and gold gives you some options. It gives you some options. And I'm a big proponent of having precious metals.
Be Reals asks, is there any brand or type Faraday bag you recommend?
Well, I've got a couple and I've had them. I don't know of anybody currently, and I don't even know the name of the ones I've got. There are some pretty cool systems, though, and you can get some different sizes. You can even get some that'll fit over your generator. Mm-hmm. Like you have a gas-powered generator. They're kind of expensive. I mean, they're like $300. But you can get some different sizes, and there's a number of different ones out there. Again, they have not tested an honest to God. We have not gone through an honest to God EMP to where we could do the testing.
And that's the thing for me that I'm always leery about with a lot of the Faraday bags and covers and stuff is they've never been real world tested in an EMP or during an EMP to see how well they function or if they function at all. It's a lot of it is theoretical. It can work, it may work, it should work, but you can't say 100% for sure that it will work.
The thing is, those little small holes is the way that the gamma, I don't know if it's the gamma rays or just the rays, the ultraviolet rays that come through. There's the way they're designed is they're coming through at a certain way, and they're bigger or they're slow, and when they just can't pass through that mesh. It's very scientific. The way they set it up, and it's taken from data that's been out there from the Faraday, the original Faraday designs. But again, like Robbie said, we don't know. And again, it also has to do with how close you are to the blast. Okay, so let's see. We've got about 5 minutes. We're gonna, guys. Here's the thing. First off, is when digital currency bills come up in Congress, or there starts to be a push. Guys, there's a danger with that, and we can lose our freedoms, and we can lose our liberty, and we can lose our privacy, which we're already losing. But the problem is, and the big difference with digital is that once that goes into place, it's going to encompass everything. Right now, we're partitioned. There are certain things. You know what? YouTube may not like us, but that doesn't mean that Facebook's going to give us a hard time, which they probably will. But you have some other options typically that you can move from. Because they're not all interconnected. Mm-hmm. And the problem with the digital currency, especially the central bank digital currency, is that it interconnects all financial. Yep. It creates a financial surveillance system that's never been seen before, and it will totally invade your privacy, everything you do. So we need to really step up and stand against it. We need safeguards. We need to have other options. In the current situation we're in now, we do have safeguards. And one of the big ones is cash. It's one of the big ones. But when they start getting into this thing of limiting cash and limiting this and limiting that, that's a danger sign that we need to be watching for.
And I couldn't agree more. I think it's one of those things that we really need to watch and we really need to monitor closely. When we see things like this start to get brought up in Congress as a potential bill, we need to be on the phone with our congressmen and our senators immediately, telling them, hey, you've got to vote against this. You can't vote for this. This is bad for our country. It's bad for our economy. It's bad for our citizens. It's bad for everyone.
Yeah, and total control, because the problem is when you give. I mean, that's the whole thing with our nation and the birth of our nation was to give control back to the people.
Yep.
Now we've lost a lot of things, and really our elected officials are limited way beyond what they should be. The people that we elect and put into office, with the bureaucracy, and you can call it the swamp or whatever else, there is a massive organization going on behind the scenes. But we've got to fight with our vote and with our voice and make sure that we're getting information out. And that's why we did this today. But guys, again, currency, your money in your bank, it limits you. So have some different alternatives. Again, precious metals are great. At this point right now, having cash on the side is great. I mean, you're able to do things that, and not nefarious, not things that are bad.
That's right.
Your privacy of things you don't want everybody to know about you. You have that right to privacy. It's a basic God-given right, just like the Second Amendment. Your personal affairs, your effects, those are yours, and we have that right to have that privacy. Of course, hard assets. That's one thing to do that you can do some trading with, bartering, and one thing I didn't mention is Bitcoin. At this point right now, Bitcoin's kind of a rebel. I don't understand all the intricacies of Bitcoin. We have done some stuff, but it is very complicated. But that's definitely an alternative to this. Now, will the central bank come and take that? Possibly, yes. But it does at this point. In fact, I was listening to one guy that was talking about it, and he said that is one of the safeguards at this point against that. So, and if you want to try to get into all the understanding of that. So anyway, guys, I hope this at least gave you some pause to think and maybe do some things to make some plans and some options, the more this gets closer. And it's a scary thing to me. And I think there's a lot of dangers to the loss of our freedoms. So, and also we do appreciate Sportsman's Guide, $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch. And then Exotac, we really appreciate those guys as well. Some of the best fire starters out on the market, and you get 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description. And we definitely appreciate Robbie Wheaton for being here. It's always a pleasure. And we were kind of somber today, but this was not a fun subject. Believe me, it was not fun, but it was something I felt like it really needed to be talked about. This will be part of our playlist for this prepper school, but also check out Robbie's YouTube channel and Robbie Wheaton's does gun parts, does a Glock gun parts, really a great line. This flat face trigger is the best on the market. And he does custom gun work. If you need an RMR cut, or you need slide cuts, or you need whatever, get in touch with Robbie, and he is the man. Because when somebody asked me about it, I said, I know a guy. I know a guy. And also Sarah Mack, we appreciate her for taking the questions. So I'm going to sign off. Be strong. Be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.